Buddy, am I ever going to target a certain problematic life issue with this one? Like, holy shit, have I really prolonged this? And I don't know why it just occurred to me to start touching upon this. It's not a long one, it's not nothing like that, but the reason why I'm so excited about it is because it gives you an aspect of how to deal with self-doubt, especially when dealing with the concept of leadership. And this is something that's kind of stuck with me for so many years now, but it's never really been as prevalent with me personally until less than a year ago. And I know I say that about a lot of things, and I think that's why I started doing these things, because, looking at how vital some of these life lessons become, I want to voice them and pour them out as, just as they're fresh, and I'm living them, maybe not internalizing and externalizing, even though that is one way to put it, as I'm applying all the concepts that have been sitting in the back of my mind. I'm finally practicing the material that's been storing up, and it's just as it's all unfolding, I'm trying to fan it out and make it relevant to everybody. May of this year, and we're still in 2016 here, I got promoted at work to a lead hand position, which basically means you're an assistant foreman, which basically means, when you have a certain number of people working on one site and there's a lot of little bits to, a big picture or a big project, you get to select a few of the workers so that you get your own sub crew, so to speak, you know what I mean? And you're running whatever portion of the project is given to you. I've learned so much through that, but more than anything, it's taken me way back to the years when I first started doing construction, when I first started, getting a taste of what the construction life was. I know I constantly talk about moving forward and all this stuff, and when you're on a journey, there's no point in time in which your progress should be at a standstill or moving back at all. However, when you're leading, there's certain steps you want to take when trying to push the overall picture forward. Personally, when you're on a personal goal or a personal adventure, you almost have to put those, like the horse visors on. You have to really narrow your view so that your focus doesn't stray off your path, and that's when the whole the strict moving forward concept applies. But when you're leading when you have a group of people relying on you and feeding off you and shooting off based off your direction, then there are certain cases in which you don't stop for a bit, but you slow down just enough to be able to keep your little pack intact and keep your ducks in a line. And so what I'm getting at is this, and this is totally, and when I say this applies to a crucial aspect of life, it totally relies on, it revolves around trust. It revolves around confidence. This talk isn't particularly about what the concept or the different branches of trust is, but it definitely hits hard on one of the variations of it, one of the points of what trust is. Because when you're leading, there's so much to be said about trusting the guys on your crew, trusting that each one knows what they're doing, whatever the task is, and that everybody's contributing to help pull the wagon forward. I'm pretty sure that there's moments when the guys that are doing, dog sledding in the mountains, there's times when they have to get off the sled themselves and kick the dogs in the ass, just to refocus their mind and just set them back into game face mode, you know what I mean? And that's part of the requirement of a leader. And so in saying that, and this doesn't just apply to, when there's disputes and arguments going on around among the personalities of the crew or whatnot. I was also talking about the physical progress, the actual progress of the production and the whatever the craft is you're pushing forward. There's so much to be said about the trust that you have to have in your crew members, and the trust that you have to bestow upon them. You have to trust them as much as they have to trust you, as much as they have to have confidence in what they're doing in order to do it right. You have to have confidence in them. You have to know that they're, like I said, you have to be confident that they know what they're doing. They have to trust that they're gonna do a good job, and so that so it's one less load on your back. It's one less thing that you have to be stressed about. Because let me tell you how stressful it is to be a leader sometimes. And for 1 second, there's a slight doubt in your mind about where somebody's capabilities are, then it's your responsibility to ensure that instead of doubt, there's confidence. Instead of distrust, there is trust. And what I mean by that is, when I was first starting out in the construction industry, I was working for these carpenters. Now, I'm not going to go into what happened to them because they ended up having some really shit luck with their immigration status, but I ended up joining this framing crew my summer just before my graduation. Basically for certain reasons I couldn't keep working with them or whatnot. But I was just some little punk ass kid who had zero experience with construction. Did not have couldn't use a fucking skill saw for the life of me. Had zero clue about how to read a measuring tape. Couldn't even pick up a sheet of plywood for the hell of me. Well, probably didn't help that I was a pretty, some would say healthy, I wouldn't. Let's just say that summer I definitely manned up a little bit. Those guys definitely manned me up quite a bit. My skills weren't exactly there, and instead of doing the typical route of, I'll learn as I go or whatnot, the foreman, Donald, from Costa Rica, he did this thing where he made me take an entire workday, sit downstairs in the basement. He gave me a shitload of woods, made me draw a bunch of lines at random measurements and cut them so I would learn how to at least cut straight. And I spent all day there just chopping away at fucking wood. And I did that for 8 hours straight. And basically by the next day, I at least wasn't butchering shit as bad and stuff, you know what I mean? And then progressively from there, I got better. He basically spent, whatever my wage was times the 8 hours of, he invested that sacrifice of free money for me to get better at the craft, so that later on he wouldn't have to worry about me butchering something. Or if something needed to be cut and I was standing around with nothing to do, he wouldn't have to resort to me standing there, him having to call someone from somewhere else coming down to chop something, and then me just standing there looking at him, when it would have been so much easier for him to just look at me, tell me to cut it, and it would have been done right then and there, you know what I mean? That's what that is all about, you know what I mean? He hired me, so he took that challenge on. He knew what he was doing. That's a leader right there, He invested those 8 hours of my wage for me to get better, so that later it would benefit him. It would benefit the production, the progress of what he was trying to accomplish. Not only did I become confident in my ability to perform, one of the many required tasks that was, one of the many requirements that was my job. Not only did I become confident in myself, he became confident in me. And I was reliable to him because I had picked something up, and it was through him basically backing up just a touch, just enough for me to get confident in my craft, thus making him confident that I was going to be useful to him in the overall scheme of things. Because honestly, the best way to trust someone is to teach them the quote unquote the right way to do it, or your way to do it. The best way to ensure that somebody's going to do something the way you know how to do it is to teach them how to do it. You know what I mean? And I think that's, in some regards, the best way to trust is to teach and secure someone whatever the craft is. And when you're a leader, basically, it's your reputation on the line. Therefore, things have to get done your way. I understand that feeling. Therefore, it's your responsibility that everyone stands to par, if not better. Now, that's not to say that you're teaching everyone to do your job for you, because that's not what leadership is. That's dictatorship. Fuck you, all you dictators. There's a reason why the beginning of that word is dick. Ah, God. I'm only partially kidding. That's just something to think about. Anyways, I'm going to get back to this coffee and Twinkies.